You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another crossover edition of Locked On Cowboys and Locked On Washington Football Team. We've got a great show lined up for you today as the Cowboys and Washington Football Team will meet on Sunday Night Football here in Week 16. Joining me today is the amazing Chris Russell. You can follow him on Twitter at RussellMania621. Chris, how you doing today, sir?
Marcus, thank you so much for the kind words. Appreciate you. Always great to be with you, and always good to talk. We didn't get a chance to catch up 2 weeks ago, and it feels so weird, right, to say, well, the two teams just played, and of course, Washington coming off the Tuesday night game. My head is spinning, baby. I mean, it feels like all of this is just lumped into, well, maybe a stocking, and for the Washington Football Team, it's probably coming up as coal.
So we're going to talk about each of these teams.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the Cowboys and look at Washington, how the season's going, and what we expect from this matchup. But, Chris, just what's the state of Washington football right now? I know they're 6-8 coming off a tough loss. I don't know. I mean, you tell me, but I don't know if you can be too discouraged based on what you saw on Tuesday, because it was really like a B team out there. But just overall, after 14 games, how do you feel about the season so far?
Well, the first half could not have been more disappointing, Marcus. I mean, you know this. You know the league. You're 2-6, no matter what the reasons are. And listen, they lost Ryan Fitzpatrick in quarter number 2 of the season opener, and early in quarter number 2. Obviously, you never planned for that. They lost Curtis Samuel, who they didn't have all throughout the preseason and offseason program. They lost him 2 days before the season opener. So your two biggest free agent acquisitions on offense, gone, poof. And, really, I mean, Samuel's come back, but he's been a complete non-factor except for 3 catches in 1 game, right? It's been a complete non-factor, and Fitzpatrick has never come back and obviously is done for the year. So let's start with that, right? But 2-6 is 2-6. You never expect this defense, which was heralded as, the 85 Bears defense and the 2000 Ravens. Please stop. And nonsense. I mean, we talked last year. They were beating up on Ben DiNucci, for crying out loud. Yeah. They were beating up on, bless his heart, Andy Dalton. Let's slow down, right? I never thought this was a dominant defense. Did I think it was a good defense? Sure, absolutely. So to be 2-6, to be getting lit up like a Christmas tree in the first 6-7 games of the year on that side of the ball was bitterly disappointing. And then what happens is, you go on this 4-game winning streak, right? You beat Brady and the Bucs and Cam and Carolina and his return and Monday Night Football and this, that. And then all of a sudden, false hopes are raised. And now I think they're settling back to reality. The Cowboys obviously smacked them in the face last Sunday. And I don't want to say they've never recovered from that, but I mean, they kind of haven't. Between that, the Cowboys and COVID probably turned out the lights. The party's over on the Washington season.
Yeah, in this Washington season, it was always, I don't know, it felt like it was a little flimsy depending on what they got from the quarterbacks, right? Like, if they got a good game from Taylor Heinicke, they would have a chance to compete with anybody, like we saw against Tampa Bay earlier in the season. But when you're down to Garrett Gilbert, who Cowboy fans know well because we had to start him last year against Pittsburgh, it's just tough to win games that way, right?
Yeah, and listen, I don't know how you walked away from Tuesday night's game. I don't blame that one on Garrett Gilbert. I mean,
no, I actually thought he played pretty well, all things considered. Right.
Could he have made another play or two? Absolutely. Sure. There's no doubt. I mean, there's a couple of spots, holding on to the ball too long near the end of the first half, maybe on that final 4th down play, the 3rd down play right before that, he's chased under pressure, so on and so forth. I don't want to go too crazy into the woods here, but there were some things maybe he could have done better that maybe if he wasn't Garrett Gilbert, maybe he would have done better, right? If he was Aaron Rodgers or if he was, whoever. That being said, I mean, once again around here, I mean, I guess you start with that quarterback instability in general, right? Since 2018, when they their first year without Kirk Cousins. So again, they played the franchise double tango, whatever, he goes to Minnesota. So 2018, 4 different starting quarterbacks. 2019, 3 different starting quarterbacks. 2020, Marcus, 4 different starting quarterbacks. 2021, they're already at 3 different starting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And the possibility exists. The possibility exists that if Kyle Allen starts one of these games, and maybe even possibly this Sunday night in Dallas, that will be back at 4 different starting quarterbacks. So that would make 3 out of the 4 years, assuming we get to that threshold, where you have 4 different starting quarterbacks in 3 of those 4 years. In the off year, you had 3. I mean, again, like, I know you guys went through hell last year with Dak's injury to Dalton, to DiNucci, and back to Dalton and Garrett Gilbert. So I get all that. But there's quarterback stability, and then there's whatever Washington has been dealing with for the last 4 years, and really for the last 25 plus years, if we're being honest.
I want to continue this quarterback discussion in Washington because I find it fascinating. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Stat Hero. No one plays daily fantasy sports to lose. Winning just feels so much better. But traditional fantasy sports are a long-term losing proposition because you never know who or what you are up against. Stat Hero is the first of its kind daily fantasy sports platform where it's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. Winner takes all. And here's the crazy part. Stat Hero will show you the lineups before you play, and you get to handpick the team you want to face one-on-one. This never-before-seen innovation of a fantasy sports and sports betting hybrid has Stat Hero players clocking odds that are over 4 times better than what they're used to. Why? Because you don't have to compete against thousands of experts or unknowns. Stat Hero puts you in control of your fate. With Stat Hero, you're in control of the stakes. You get to decide how much you're going to play for, and Stat Hero has no choice but to take on the action because they are daring you to beat them. Stat Hero is head-to-head, is what daily fantasy sports is supposed to be, one-on-one. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That is stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's continue this discussion about the quarterback situation in Washington, because I do think if you just look at that roster outside of quarterbacks, they're not all that different from a lot of the teams in the NFC, a lot of contenders, right? But what's the plan for Washington going forward? Do you think it is to continue to kind of lean on Taylor Heinicke in 2022? Do you see them going in the free agent route or dipping into the draft? What's the long-term play here?
I see the veteran quarterback trade market being the number one avenue that they're going to try and address this quarterback situation. Now, they tried very hard to go after Matthew Stafford last year. That was the one quarterback they made a strong push for. He obviously chose the Rams. There was a connection, of course, between Martin Mayhew, the now general manager, and Stafford, who he drafted in Detroit. This year, I truly believe with potentially Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, whatever Deshaun Watson is, Matt Ryan potentially, and maybe there's somebody else that I'm just forgetting about off the top of my head. There's 4 or 5 guys, Marcus, that I think Ron Rivera and his staff are going to have interest in. Now, I don't know how they're going to deal with the Deshaun Watson stuff. Me personally, I wouldn't touch that until it's legally cleared up, number one, and number two, adjudicated by the NFL, because I don't want to trade 3 first-round picks or whatever the tag is and then have my guys suspended for 8, 9, 10, 12 games, whatever it might be. That being said, I think Aaron Rodgers will be at the top of the list. I don't think he'll come here, but I think Aaron Rodgers will be at the top of the list. One thing to keep in mind, he's a Cal guy. Ron Rivera's a Cal guy. And as crazy as this sounds, right? Wait for this one. Mike Silver, the former NFL Network guy, he now works for the team. He works for the Washington football team. He's got a very close relationship with Aaron Rodgers. I've talked to him about this. He's been very open about it. He's a Cal guy. So I wonder if there's some backdoor politics that maybe grease the skids a little bit there. And oh, by the way, the Cal connection, Ron Rivera and like Garrett Gilbert's dad played at Cal, whatever the whole deal is, just something to keep in mind. But I think they'll go there. I think they'll probably wind up with a Matt Ryan type. I don't know if Russell Wilson wants to play for a defensive first head coach. I think he's kind of made that clear that he's a little aggravated with Pete Carroll about that. But that's where I think they go before they even think about drafting a quarterback. And maybe Mitch Trubisky is a guy that Ron has always kind of kept his eye on. So maybe you see him enter the equation as kind of a veteran free agent type signee.
I think the Matt Ryan one makes a lot of sense, right? Because it probably doesn't cost a lot to go get him, right? And I think he would be an upgrade over what Washington's had for the last
There's
few
no doubt.
years.
No doubt. How much you have to pay for him is, largely the only question. Now, there is some familiarity real quickly that I'll just add on that front. Kyle Smith, who's basically Terry Fontenot's assistant GM, was here in Washington with long time, but then in Ron's first year. Now, they had some friction, and ultimately that led to Kyle Smith not getting promoted and therefore leaving the organization. But I think there's enough of a working relationship there where, maybe it's not highway robbery. Maybe it's, a first round pick and a good player, something like that can help Atlanta out and solve both teams' needs.
Now, not to look ahead to the draft too much, but as we sit here right now, Washington would have the number 10 pick in the draft. If they would happen to lose to the Cowboys on Sunday night, they are underdogs in that game in Dallas. It's possible that they could jump up to like inside of the top, 8, maybe even inside of the top 7. Is there any quarterback? I know we're like 5 months away, but is there any quarterback in this class that gets you at least a little bit excited?
I can't say at number 7, 8, 9, wherever they ultimately wind up, that I would be lathered up for Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis or, whoever, Sam Howell, whoever's going to come out here. The kid from Nevada, Carson Strong. I mean, I know, my radio partner loves that kid, but he's got all sorts of health concerns. I haven't seen enough of them to tell you.
Go to the Senior Bowl, so maybe we'll get a look at him there. So that'll be fun.
There you go. I mean, so and obviously, I mean, some of these guys are going to, their stock is going to jump all over the place with the Senior Bowl, the Combine, just the whole market. And who knows? Again, if they address the quarterback number 1 position in the veteran trade market, obviously they won't be there. But if they wait until the draft, I don't see anybody really being a true top 10 type guy. I think you'd be reaching. But what I could see is them then trading back, ironically, and trying to not only get in a better position for one of these quarterbacks. And Marcus, maybe I'm overrating him. I kind of like Kenny Pickett more than the others. I think he's more consistent. I think he's mobile. I think he's a little bit of a gunslinger, but I think he's, fairly accurate. I think he's a leader. I think he's tough. I think he's got guts and character, all that stuff. Maybe I'm overrating him, but it sounds like you kind of agree. But I just don't know if he's, 8 or 9. Is he 8 or 9, or is he 15 to 17?
I think like if we're looking back, looking ahead 3 years from now, and there's one quarterback in this class that we say, oh yeah, that guy's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. It's probably Kenny Pickett, right?
Yeah.
Like elevated his team at Pitt, pretty accurate. Seems like he's a gamer, played really well in a bunch of big games. It's like kind of checks every box that you want him to check. Right now, he's not the most flashy quarterback. He doesn't have the absolute best tools in the world, but I don't know. I think you can win with that guy, right?
So here's my question to you, because you're very dialed into this stuff, and I know you have been. If you're Washington and you get to the position where you don't have presumably quarterback number 1 definitively solved by the time we get to late April.
Let's say they go into the season with Taylor, or they go to the draft with Taylor Heinicke and Kyle Allen.
Right. Heinicke, Allen, whoever it may be, maybe Trubisky's there. Who knows? They struck out on the big name veteran trade targets. Okay. Can you risk, say you land at number 10 in the draft, can you risk then trading down because you don't feel the value is there at 9, 10, wherever for the quarterback, say Pickett? Can you risk trading down thinking I'm going to get the quarterback at 15, 16, 17? What if he's not there? And again, you haven't addressed the need already at that. Then what do you start doing? So, you start playing this game of, maybe he'll be there. Maybe then you get yourself pinned into a corner. And maybe you make a mistake, or maybe you don't wind up with the guy that you ultimately want. How many times are we going to see a guy like Mac Jones drop all the way to 15, even though he's not naturally blessed with, just all sorts of God-given ability? It's rare to have that kind of prospect drop all the way to 15.
I'll just say this. If you wouldn't take a quarterback at 10, dropping down to 16 isn't going to really make that big of a difference, right? Like if you don't love him at 10, you're not going to love him at 16 either, right?
That's
So
fair.
I think I think by the time we get to the draft, there'll be a couple guys that we talk ourselves into as being, a really good quarterback. And again, maybe not somebody who has the potential of a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen or something like that, but maybe somebody that's more of on the line of, hey, this guy could be Kirk Cousins. This guy could be, blah, 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 blah. And listen, for Washington, I think they'd love to have somebody like Kirk Cousins back right now. Because if you can get, I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is more than an average quarterback, but if you can get average quarterback play, this is a playoff team, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing real quickly about Taylor Heinicke. I mean, he's got some moments, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Marcus, based on what you've seen. I compare him, and I often say this about him. He's a high wire act, right?
Yeah,
his good is really good, and his best is really cool, right? I mean, he's a little Doug Flutie. He's a little, modern age quarterback. He can move. He can extend plays. He can pull a rabbit out of the top hat. He can do all sorts of, his arm strength is never going to be great. I think it's the combination for me, lack of anticipation, being late, along with not having superior or even great arm strength that often catches up with him, especially if we're talking about towards the sidelines, outside the hashes, that type of thing. But when he's really good, Taylor Heinicke can look the part. And you can win games with him. You kind of mentioned that earlier. Tampa, Carolina, perfect examples. The problem is it's not right now. And I don't foresee a big jump in this area. It's not like you're going to get 10 great games out of Taylor Heinicke a year. I don't see that. Right. I don't think they see that. I don't think anybody, except for, I don't know, maybe 5 Washington football Heinicke Hive type fans really see that.
I mean, do you know what's funny? I really think Taylor Heinicke is just like early career Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Like you're gonna get some really good performances, and but if the anticipation is late, if he holds the ball a little too long and doesn't get the arm strength there, he can be a little bit of a problem as well. So I think I agree with you. Let's take one more break, and when we come back and we'll talk about this actual game that's going to happen here on Sunday Night Football. Want to tell you guys about On Location. Super Bowl 56 at SoFi is less than 100 days away, and On Location, the official hospitality partner of the NFL, is the only place to score a once-in-a-lifetime Super Bowl ticket and experience package. Select your exact seats and choose from elite experiences featuring an exclusive pregame celebration with NFL legends, 5-star LA hotels, and food by the great Wolfgang Puck. Visit onlocationexp.com/SB56 for more information, or search Super Bowl On Location. That is onlocationexp.com/SB56. Also want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through college bowl season and the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's talk about this game. Who do you have winning and why?
Well, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I'm not going to beat around. It's a short week for Washington. As we sit here and as we record this, Marcus, we don't know, but Ron Rivera just told me and other reporters before I hopped on with you to record this that it's possible one of the quarterbacks could get cleared here. He didn't name which one, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning because of the COVID. So I would expect they're going to have either and possibly both Taylor Heinicke, Kyle Allen back. But I don't think it, honestly, I'd be fooling myself, our audience, what have you, your audience, if I thought, oh, Washington has a really, really good chance to win. Now, can they win? Sure. If Dak and Dallas turns the ball over 3-4 times. But even you saw on Tuesday night, Philadelphia had 2 quick turnovers. Now they stabilized that. Washington got 10 points out of it, but then that was really it. That was all they were able to kind of muster, for the most part outside of one other touchdown and scoring drive. So Again, I don't see them having enough firepower unless Dallas again turns the ball over 4+ times, something in that regard, or something fluky, an act of the football gods. For whatever reason, Dallas doesn't show up they had too much Christmas dinner, whatever the case might be. Especially, and I'll just wrap this up real quickly. Like, I wasn't oh wow, this Dallas defense was so good under Dan Quinn before they got the reinforcements back, since re-adding Tank Lawrence, Neville Gallimore, Randy Gregory. Oh, and then sprinkling, of course, what you already had, what was getting better in Micah Parsons and Diggs and so on. And so now it's like, oh, wow, this is a really good Dallas defense. And that might be the scarier component of this team.
And they're actually getting even more guys back this week. Donovan Wilson, their safety, who's been really their best safety all year. I think he's going to be back for this game. They're going to get a couple more defensive tackles back. I just think this is a game the Cowboys defense should win again, right, kind of like they did last time, right? It's just they have such a big advantage on the offense and defensive line here. And even if they turn the ball over like they did in the previous matchup, Washington is going to have to win this turnover battle by probably 2 or probably 3 in order to win. It's possible. Chris, as you know, division games are weird. Like, weird things happen in these games, even when the talent is so drastic, I would think. But the Cowboys haven't played at home since Thanksgiving. It's been a long time. They've been 3 straight road games. I get the sense that the Cowboys are going to treat this game like a playoff game. They're going into it like, hey, if we win this game, we win the division. And there's a chance that the division could already be wrapped up before they play this game. It's not the way Mike McCarthy's treating it. So I expect the Cowboys to play one of their better games of the season, and they should win. But like I said, we've seen weird things happen in divisional games before, right?
Had a real quick question, if you don't mind, sure, before we run out of time for you. Just from my perspective, talking to some people, and I know some people, that know the Dallas situation pretty closely. I'll just leave it at that. They're still trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do we need to do to get this offense? I know Jerry and I think Stephen Jones were critical of the receivers not doing some things. Dak's been a little inconsistent. The offensive line obviously has had some issues. We know Zeke, and obviously not having Tony Pollard for a little bit, but now he's back. What is there something you would put a finger on, as somebody who watches every snap, every tape, all that? Is there something you would put a finger on that says, aha, this is it more than the other issues?
I mean, it's a lot of the same issues like the Kansas City Chiefs were having earlier in the season. Like, a lot of teams are playing some deep cover shell against the Cowboys and basically daring them to throw the ball underneath over and over again. And the Cowboys are doing it, but it's just they're not hitting on big plays. And when you're having to put together 10, 12, 14 play drives, a lot can go wrong, right? Like, you can have a holding call, or you can have a drop pass like we saw last week. CeeDee Lamb had 3 drops. Or, you could, just not make that first guy miss, and all of a sudden a 8-yard gain turns into a 2-yard game. So I think it's just a lot of execution. I think the big plays are coming. They just haven't hit over the last couple of weeks. And they've also played some pretty decent defenses. Like, Washington's defense is good. Then they make you work for everything. So I think the offense will eventually get back on track. It's going to take some time, and they're just not there yet.
So the best way to say it, I guess, would be there's a bunch of little things, but not one dominant problem or dominant issue.
I don't think it's the league has figured out Dak Prescott, or they figured out Kellen Moore or anything like that. They're just not executing. There are way too many drops. They've had some guys missing on the offensive line. The receivers haven't all played together in a long time. I think they're closer to putting up 35 points in the game than what anybody thinks. They just haven't done it yet, Chris. That's all there is really to it.
And real quickly here, also, I'm fascinated by this. Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, right? He's been mentioned, but more Dan Quinn. Is there some sort of sense that this might be a one and done type thing with Dan Quinn here? That, maybe with, head coaching opportunities and whatnot, and obviously his experience, that it might only be 1 year in Dallas, or is there not much buzz about that?
I think early on in the season, there was a lot of buzz for Kellen Moore leaving, right? Because young offensive minds always get scooped up pretty quickly, right? I get the sense that he's going to be a little bit more patient about the job he picks. I don't think he's just going to jump at the first opportunity. But Dan Quinn, I could see leaving after this year because he's an established good coach. Like the end in Atlanta didn't work out particularly well, but he took that team to the Super Bowl. And they should have beat New England in the Super Bowl. And I think because he gets, the players absolutely love playing for him. He's revamped this Cowboys defense. I think there's going to be a lot of teams out there that, maybe that need a culture change. They're going to want to bring in Dan Quinn, like the Las Vegas Raiders. Like he would be a perfect fit. Go there, rebuild that team. It would make a ton of sense. If in Denver, if they get rid of Vic Fangio, I think he's the kind of young players coach that, that would thrive there. So I do get the sense that Dan Campbell's more likely to leave than Kellen Moore.
And one other quick question, if we have time, just from a Cowboys perspective. I mean, obviously, I know here in Washington now, maybe the furor is not going to be the way it was leading up to the game 2 weeks ago. It's Dallas week. We want Dallas. The rivalry thing. Does anybody in Dallas really care about the Washington football team / Redskins, or is it just kind of like, whatever? It's the same as the Eagles, the same as the Giants.
Yeah, I've always got the sense from Cowboy fans that they feel, and this is the way the Cowboys think of this, is that everybody else in the NFC is their little brother, right? If there's one team that is more of a rival than them, than anybody, would probably be the Giants. Right. But I just don't see the same animosity for the Cowboys in this kind of rivalry that maybe Washington has, or maybe other teams have, like the Steelers, Ravens. I don't get that same sense of rivalry right now that we've had maybe in the last decade or two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I've asked you about this before, but it's always fascinating to see, what different markets, different teams. And, when you're the Cowboys and you've got the star on your helmet and, the star on the field, like everybody wants to give you their best shot. So like little old Dan Snyder and the Burgundy and Golders, whatever we're going to call them, are just kind of like annoying gnats.
I think for the Cowboys, they have more like conference rivals and division rivals, like Green Bay, right? Like that's the team that's prevented them from going to the Super Bowl multiple seasons. And I mean, we've been saying this all year long on the Locked On Cowboys podcast, but doesn't everything seem like it's just lining up for a divisional round game in Lambeau between the Cowboys and Packers and Rodgers and Mike McCarthy? It just seems like that's where we're heading, right?
That would be cool. I mean, I know this. Fox would be very, very, very
happy. Fox would,
or NBC or whoever's got that game.
They'd love nothing more than the Rodgers McCarthy angle all week long. How many times would they show the Des Bryant catch, no catch? It would be so much.
No doubt. No doubt.
Chris, thank you so much for popping on here with us, and really looking forward to Sunday night. We hope you enjoy the holiday weekend, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. It's always a pleasure. Great to see you, talk with you, and get your insight on a bunch of different things. Happy holidays to you and
thank you.
Your family, and obviously everybody in Cowboy Nation. You guys do a great job. So always happy to be with you. Thank you so much.
You can follow him on Twitter at RussellMania621. Check him out on the Locked On Dynasty, or sorry, the Locked On Washington Football Podcast.
Certainly not a dynasty around here, I can tell you.
Hopefully soon. I want the NFC East to be better, because that makes these games a lot more fun when these feel like playoff ones. But check him out again, Locked On Washington Football Team. Check out his co-host David Harrison on Twitter as well. For us, I'm at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow us at Locked On Cowboys. We'll see you on Friday for our preview show. Until next time, guys, thanks again.